So we're going to just start with questions, if y'all are ready. The first section of questions we're going to talk about tonight is lesson preparation. So we had some ladies that submitted some questions, some of our lower grades teachers that asked some questions about lesson prep. So one of the questions asked was for a refresher on best practices for teaching. So do one of you have something you'd like to, one particular aspect of a practice of teaching you'd like to address?
For me, I just think one of the biggest things is relationships with the kids. You have to know the kids in your classroom before you can ever set any kind of expectations. So for me, build that relationship, get to know what they like to do, and then also it's okay to have relationships, but also clear expectations. So I think that's one of the best practices, or at least what I try to implement when I teach.
Yeah, what do you think is one of the best ways to build relationships with your kids in the classroom?
I think just talking to them and letting them know that you care, asking them about what they enjoy, how their day was, trying to make connections. If they like a certain thing, try to, as best as you can, to figure out how you can join in that conversation with them.
And I think a large misconception by so many teachers, whether it be public school or whether it be in the church setting, is that you have to start on your curriculum and start on your topics the first day. But you really need, if you're going to build adequate relationships with your students or your kids at church, you need to do it day one with that, because the lessons and the content, that will come. But if you wait too long on building relationships, you may be, I think that needs to be number one, the first thing.
Well, once they know your expectations, then the rest of the trimester, your lessons are going to go smoother, and it's just going to help overall.
So do any of you have any suggestions on how to set those expectations for your classroom? So for example, first day of Bible class, what would be a good example of what you would do to set those expectations for your classroom?
One thing we've done this past trimester is just have a white piece of paper that we put up on the wall, and it's just pretty simple, and it's written expectations, and we try to go over those with them. But then also, it's not always just listen, sit up, do this. It is, we're glad you're here, we love you, always end up with that. So just to kind of have a visual reminder for the kids to reference back throughout the trimester.
Something we've done in class is I let all of the kids make their own rules with me saying whether I agree or disagree. That way I feel like when you have the buy-in from your students, they're going to accept the consequences or the rules and be okay with it. We did the white paper like you did, and then we just wrote them up there. What's really important to you? What do you want from this? And how can we get there? And we just kind of made a goal and went from there.
Yeah, so what age do you think that would be appropriate for starting with? First grade?
Probably
or
first.
and
I
up?
even think, you think kindergarten could handle it?
I think kindergarten could do it.
I do too.
I think with guidance for sure.
I do too.
Especially visual guidance. With me in my kindergarten class, I have 4 particular things that I started out with at the beginning of the year, and I still talk it through them every day, and we're almost in March, and it's eyes watching, ears listening, safe hands and safe body. And then I feel like all of my other rules and expectations can fit somewhere within those 4 things. And I have visuals for that, and I point to them every day. And now it's to the point where I can just point, and the kids will kind of go back to reset themselves essentially. And then if you wanted to do what Laura was doing with kindergarten, once you have those set expectations like that, those basic ones, then you can revisit it maybe a couple of weeks later and say, okay, now we've been in school for a while, now we know what school is like, so now let's talk about what we want our classroom to be like for the rest of the school year. And then you can kind of transition into what Laura was talking about if you want to do that as a teacher.
I may even think it down to your 3 and 4 year olds. Modeling, I think that's huge. I think as the teacher, you get up, how you want them to push their chairs up. They walk in, you do this maybe 5 or 10 minutes before class starts. They get it. They understand the rules.
I mean, I physically, you know, as a 6'1" male kindergarten teacher, I will physically show them. I will sit in a kindergarten seat and have them watch me stand up, push in my chair, and walk and set crisscross applesauce on the carpet,
That's great.
and sit there and let them kind of soak that in. And that, when an adult is doing what they do, that really will naturally, I think, it typically does draw them into you and have them watch you, and after that, I will have one by one go and do that, and then I will have 3 at a time, and then 5 at a time, and gradually build it up like that. But definitely what Laura said, modeling, model at the beginning.
That gives the kids awareness and ownership. Because
Right.
even us, we don't know what we look like or sound like, but if you model it and show them ways not to do it and ways to follow directions, they're like, oh, that's what I look like, or that's the right way to go
Well,
about
it
it.
can also stop some behavior issues. If you have students that don't know what to do, when you have students that really need a structured environment, they know the expectations, and it's, you know, it makes them more comfortable.
Anxious students
Yes,
as well.
anxious,
Yeah,
yes.
gives them a pattern.
And they know
what
what's
to
going to
do.
expect next. Right.
Well, let me know if you guys agree with this. I think especially in a setting like church, where during the day, Monday through Friday, they all are in different places. You know, they're all in different elementary schools. They're all in different environments with their homeschool cohorts. And so whenever a Bible class teacher comes in and they say, "Okay, walk to the carpet," there are different expectations for that. Walking to one grown-up is different to another grown-up potentially, and how they walk. You know, do they need to walk through each other, or do they need to walk around? So that's why I think that modeling really comes into play.
That's really good.
Well, and don't be afraid to like stop and practice, you know, even a couple weeks into Bible class and be like, oh wait, remember what our expectation was, and let's all practice again. Not calling out one student, you know, but just I noticed last week that we struggled with this. Let's all, you know, start off class and review it and stuff.
And especially if you have new students in the classroom, visitors.
Yeah.
They know then what to expect.
Right.
And I think what Mindy said, I think revisiting something like that sometimes can be perceived as negative. That doesn't have to be perceived as negative. I mean, especially when you're teaching with, you know, the smaller students, you can say, boys and girls, guess what? We're going to get to do something that we got to do last week. We're going to get to practice going to our seat. I mean, it's all the spin that you have as the teacher. And I mean, that's so important, the tone that you set.